What's up? We have a large chunk of information, courtesy of the Flames of Destruction pack, and with it provides some more cards that support the World Legacy and a brand new archetype called Troymare. The first card is Troimea Goblin. This is a Link 2 Wind Fiend Link effect monster with 1300 attack, and its links are the left and right. It requires 2 monsters with different names, and its effect is 1. If this card is link summoned, you can discard 1 card. During the main phase of this turn, you can normal summon 1 monster to a zone this card points to, in addition to your normal summon or set. If this effect was activated while this card was co-linked, you can also draw 1 card. 2. Co-linked monsters you control cannot be targeted by card effects. This card has 1300 attack, which makes it quite weak and easy enough to attack into. As for the requirements, these are easy to meet, as you'll have multiple of different cards, more so than multiple copies of monsters in your deck. As for the effects, with the first effect, this can only work if this card was summoned as a secondary link monster, as the link points direct to the main monster zone. If this card is in one of those zones, or to no zones if it is in the extra monster zone, the ability to discard a card to provide yourself with an additional normal summon, which is not restricted by type, archetype or attribute, means you can bring whatever you need to the field. This provides more efficiency when attempting multiple link summons within the turn. The co-linking effect also negates the immediate drawback of this card, as you may have to discard something, but if summoned whilst it is co-linked, you can draw a replacement card from the top of your deck, which can be a better card, or at least prevent you from going minus for this effect. As for the second effect, this provides protection to your co-linked monsters. So this means anything that links with this has resistance to whatever your opponent is attempting. This card is very useful as a secondary link monster, with the downside of it being destroyed in battle quickly. However, there had to be a downside, otherwise that would have made this card far too strong for a Link 2. The next card is Troimea Mermaid. This is a Link 1 Water Fiend effect monster with 1000 attack and requires 1 Troimea monster, except Troimea Mermaid. Its link point is at the bottom and its effect is you can only use this card's name's first effect once per turn. 1. If this card is link summoned, you can discard 1 card, special summon 1 Troimea monster from your deck. If this effect was activated while this card was co-linked, you can also draw 1 card. 2. Monsters on the field that are not co-linked lose 1000 attack and defense. This card has a very weak attack stat, but what can you expect considering that it requires only 1 monster to summon it? The material requirement makes this card only useful within this deck, and so cannot be splashed into other decks. This was intentional by Konami, so that its effects could not be abused by other decks, and may add in just 1 or 2 Troimare monsters. As for its effect, when it is summoned by getting rid of a card, you can search and bring out a Troimare from your deck, and benefits again with the ability to draw a card if already co-linked. This seems to be a running theme with the Troimares, getting rid of a card, but being able to replace it if co-linked. This is best to be summoned as a secondary link monster as well, as though you don't get the benefit of the opened up extra monster zone, you do get the benefit of the additional draw. As for the second effect, all monsters that are not co-linked lose 1000 attack and defense. This makes it better for being summoned into the extra monster zone, as you can make one of your monsters protected from this effect, whilst every one of your opponent's monsters will be affected by this, as it only has the 1 link point. The third card is Troimea Griffin. This is a Link 4 Light Fiend effect monster with 2500 attack, and the link points are towards the top, left, right and bottom. It requires 2 or more monsters with different card names. Its effect is you can only use this card's name's first effect once per turn. 1. If this card is link summoned, you can discard one card and target one spell or trap card in your graveyard. Set that card on your side of the field, but it cannot be activated this turn. If this effect was activated while this card was co-linked, you can also draw one card. 2. Special summoned monsters that are not linked cannot activate their effects. This card has a decent stat, however the problem being that it requires a total of 4 monsters to summon. I know that can be easier now, especially with the increase of link spam effects, using the combos of cards such as Grinder Golem and the other cards that return it to your hand to abuse again. But for most decks, this can be an uphill battle that will see this card rarely, if ever, be summoned to the field, especially if you are struggling to hold onto any advantage. This card also risks being sidelined or beaten by monsters with easier summoning requirements. I mean, look, for example, at Dark Magician, it has the exact same attack stat, but has multiple ways of recovering itself, even if you were to crash into this card. As for its effects, this card is able to recover one of your used spell or trap cards by discarding a card, with the limitation set that it cannot be used this turn. Also with the premise that if co-linked, you draw another card. There are very few cards that have this type of effect, and tend to be more specific as to what they can bring back, such as Ancient Gear Drill, which needs you to be running Ancient Gears within your deck to work, or to a greater extent, Super Heavy Samurai Susanoo, who can set it with no restrictions, other than once it has been used, the card gets banished, so you can't continually use that particular card. This can be useful as cards such as Foolish Burial of Goods can send the spell or trap you want to the graveyard to set up for this effect. As for the second effect, this prevents monsters that are not co-linked from using their effects. This means if this has been played as a secondary link monster, that 2 of your monsters can use their effects, whilst only 1 of your opponents can use theirs. This puts your opponent in a difficult situation, as players rely on their monster effects being faster than traps. However, this could be a bit of a turning point for traps, as the hand traps prevent your monsters from using their effects anyway, but less people are siding to remove your back row cards. The next card is Troimea Unicorn. This is a Link 3 Dark Fiend Link effect monster with 2200 attack, and its link markers point to the left, right and bottom. It requires 2 or more monsters with different card names, and its effect is, you can only use this card's name's first effect once per turn. 1. If this card is link summoned, you can discard one card and target one card on the field, return it to the deck. If this effect was activated while this card was co-linked, you can also draw one card. 2. While you control a co-linked Troimare monsters, the number of cards you draw during your draw phase becomes equal to the number of those monsters with different names. This card has 2200 attack. This is not bad, but still requires 3 monsters in order to bring it out, making it weaker than quite a few 1 tribute monsters and a range of Xyz monsters. The summoning again is not difficult, as you just need them to have different names. As for the effects, when it is link summoned, you can return a card back to the deck. This is a strong effect, as often your opponent will be unable to search for that card again, and works best if it is co-linked, as you can replace the card you had to discard for the cost of this effect. As for the second effect, this can let you draw continually more cards during each draw phase, provided you have co-linked Troimare monsters. So the bigger your board is, the more cards you gain per turn. The downside of this is, when facing decks that either like to banish, as they can often deal with this problem, or Trickstar Reincarnation, that can get rid of your hand, so all your opponent has to do is decide when they will activate it, and by that time you will have lost a chunk of your deck. Troimea Phoenix is a Link 2 Fire Fiend effect monster with 1900 attack and has links at the top and the right. It requires 2 monsters with different names, and its effect is you can only use this card's name's first effect once per turn. 1. If this card is link summoned, you can discard 1 card, then target 1 spell or trap card your opponent controls, destroy it. If this effect was activated while this card was co-linked, you can also draw 1 card. 2. Co-linked monsters you control cannot be destroyed by battle. This card has a decent attack stat for requiring 2 monsters to summon, and again, like most of them, the need for 2 different monsters is not difficult to achieve. In terms of its effect, this has back row destruction effect. This is one of the less impressive of their effects, as plenty of archetypes have their own version that does the same thing, without any fuss, or have the generic option always open to them of Tornado Dragon, as most decks run multiple level 4s. As for the second effect, this provides co-linked monsters with battle protection. Combine this with Cerberus and you provide your monsters with both types of protection. The next card is Troimea Cerberus. This is a Link 2 Earth Fiend Link effect monster with 1600 attack and has links at the top and the left. The summoning requirements are 2 monsters with different names, and its effect is you can only use this card's name's first effect once per turn. 1. If this card is link summoned, you can discard 1 card, then target 1 special summoned monster in your opponent's main monster zone, destroy it. If this effect was activated while this card was co-linked, you can also draw 1 card. 2. Co-linked monsters you control cannot be destroyed by card effects. This card has a decent attack stat for something that needs 2 monsters. The summoning requirement is also the same, only needing monsters with different names. As for its effect, this can get rid of one of your opponent's special summoned monsters in their main monster zone. This can be decent, but since you cannot go for the extra monster zone, this can also be very problematic, as they will likely have their best monster in that zone. However, it works to disrupt their extended plays when building up their link zones. As for the second effect, Cerberus provides the other effect to make your co-linked monsters protected. As for the World Legacy cards, we have World Legacy World Spear. This is a level 8 Dark Machine effect monster with 3000 attack and 0 defense, and its effect is you can only use this card name's first and third effects once per turn. 1. During damage calculation, when 2 monsters, including a link monster, are battling, you can discard this card. That opponent's monster loses 3000 attack. 2. Your opponent cannot target other World Legacy monsters for an attack. 3. If a monster is special summoned from the extra deck, special summon 1 World Legacy token, Machine Dark level 1 with 0 attack and 0 defense to each side of the field in defense position. This card has great strength, but the problem being it has 0 defense, and if it could be put in defense mode, it could be beaten very quickly. In relation its effects, this has a discard effect which can make your opponent's monster lose 3000 attack. The one limitation of this is you or your opponent must have a link monster for this to be used. This acts as a battle-style hand trap, which your opponent will not be predicting. As for the second effect, when this is on the field, it forces your opponents to go after this card and stops them from attacking your other World Legacy cards. As for the final effect, this card can create tokens on both sides of the field. This can be a problem, as if your opponent summons from the extra deck, they can generate more link monsters. However, if you use this effect on your turn, not only can you get rid of any tokens your opponent has, but you can extend your link summon plays. The final card is Resistance Against the World Legacy. This is a normal trap card that says target spell or trap cards on the field up to the number of co-linked monsters on the field destroy them. This can get rid of multiple back row cards, the downside being that this condition can in itself be the problem. Bringing out multiple monsters to be co-linked can force your opponent to just activate one of their back rows to destroy them. I don't see this replacing a Heavy Storm Duster or anything similar very soon, as there are ways to get around their negative effects and can be activated when you need them, be it such as with Duster you can activate it during your opponent's turn to prevent you from losing your battle phase during your next turn. Overall, this is quite a unique set of link monsters designed to be best working together, and the more of your cards that are co-linked, the more advantage they provide, including additional drawing, back row destruction, monster protection, and stat reduction. The main issue with them now is this is just a set of link monsters. It would be good if they had some effect monsters to go with them, though it is still not too late for that to happen. What do you think of these cards? Will they see much play as an archetype, or replace any of the boss link monsters currently in the game, or will they be forgotten soon enough? Leave your comments down below, like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe, click the bell for notifications, and as always, thank you for taking the time to watch this.
No.